Today, I want to dive into a topic that I think is incredibly important: how modern pharmaceutical medicine gradually pushed natural remedies out of mainstream healthcare. Everything I'm sharing today is grounded in a single historical source, a medical textbook published in 1926 called United States Dispensatory, written by Wood and Lyle. I'm referring specifically to the 21st edition, which spans more than 2,400 pages. At that time, this book functioned as the definitive medical reference in the United States. If you were a physician in the early 20th century, this was essentially your medical Bible. What's fascinating is that, according to this book, about 75% of the treatments used in 1926 were natural remedies. These included herbs, plants, minerals, and animal-derived substances. Only around 25% of treatments were synthetic drugs, many of which were derived from petroleum. Over the next few decades, that balance shifted dramatically. By the 22nd edition in 1943, the ratio had changed to roughly 50% natural and 50% synthetic. Then by the 25th edition in 1955, natural remedies accounted for only 25%, while synthetic pharmaceutical drugs made up the remaining 75%. I'm not going to spend time dissecting motives or getting into the roles of large industrial families, the Flexner Report, or how medical education was reshaped to prioritize pharmacology. That's a whole discussion on its own. What I do want to point out is that history often follows a familiar pattern. Something begins with good intentions, then gradually becomes influenced and reshaped by other forces in medicine, we've moved from a relatively small number of diagnoses to thousands. We now have countless treatments and highly specialized fields, all operating in silos. If you have a digestive issue, you see a GI specialist. They run tests, label the problem, prescribe a medication, and monitor you over time. The focus is almost entirely on managing the condition once dysfunction has already occurred. One major distinction between natural remedies and pharmaceutical drugs is how they work. Drugs are often extremely potent, but tend to target a single enzyme or pathway. Natural substances are generally less forceful, but they act on multiple systems at once. They may not be as dramatic, but they're often more broad in their effects. We often hear that modern medicine is more advanced, but advancement doesn't always mean greater wisdom. There's a tendency to dismiss older practices as outdated, unscientific, or even quackery. Yet at the same time, many pharmaceutical drugs are modeled after compounds that originally came from plants or other natural sources. Another argument I hear frequently is that natural remedies lack research. But research requires funding, and when there's no patent or profit potential, who's going to pay for large-scale studies? Around 80% of medical research funding comes from pharmaceutical companies, which naturally influences what gets studied. That there's also the issue of iatrogenic illness, health problems that arise as side effects of medical treatment itself. Polypharmacy is a huge concern, especially in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, where individuals may be taking 10, 20, or even 30 different medications at once. What's often missing from this model is lifestyle medicine. Diet, sleep, stress, gut health, eating frequency. These foundational factors are rarely addressed. Instead, the healthcare system tends to focus on detecting dysfunction once it appears and then managing it with medication. Prevention is largely absent. Now, full transparency, I do sell supplements, and I've been criticized for that. Some people claim my motivation is financial. My response is simple. Much of the supplement industry is already owned by large pharmaceutical and food corporations. Many popular supplements are poorly formulated. For example, the best-selling multivitamin in the world is owned by a pharmaceutical company, and its main ingredient is calcium carbonate, essentially limestone. It's heavy, inexpensive, poorly absorbed, and padded with fillers, artificial colors, and additives. My focus has always been ingredient quality. I pay close attention to formulation and avoid unnecessary fillers like maltodextrin. That matters to me. Another common criticism is that supplements aren't regulated like drugs. That's because supplements aren't drugs. Comparing them is like comparing a farmer's market to a pharmacy. They're fundamentally different categories. And when it comes to side effects, pharmaceuticals carry far greater risk than vitamins and minerals. With that foundation laid, let's talk about some of the remedies that were considered standard medical practice in 1926. This list might surprise you. Cod liver oil was commonly prescribed for tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis, nerve pain, and muscle spasms. Today we understand that its omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA, have strong anti-inflammatory effects. Nutmeg oil was used for certain psychiatric conditions and functioned as a narcotic before synthetic versions replaced it. Olive oil served as a mild laxative and was also used for gallstones, since dietary fat stimulates bile flow. Pine needle oil was inhaled as steam to help clear mucus from the lungs in chronic bronchitis. Castor oil was used both internally as a laxative and externally for skin conditions like dermatitis. Sandalwood oil was prescribed for infections such as gonorrhea, bronchitis, and bladder infections due to its antibacterial properties. Sassafras root oil, commonly associated with root beer, was used as an antiseptic even in dental applications. Betaine hydrochloride was used to support digestion by increasing stomach acidity and controlling microbes. Pepsin, a digestive enzyme, was used to aid protein digestion, effective only in an acidic stomach. Environment.Lugol's iodine was utilized for thyroid conditions and to protect the thyroid from radiation exposure. Magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt, was prescribed for relaxation, sleep, anxiety, pain, and even depression. Calcium chloride was used to address symptoms associated with excessive alkalinity, such as itching, allergies, and asthma. Liver extract was a primary treatment for anemia because it contains heme iron, B12, and essential cofactors. Methylene blue, an early synthetic compound, was used for infections, meningitis, tumors, and mitochondrial support. Lithium carbonate was used for mood stabilization. Low-dose lithium was even added to beverages until it was removed in 1948. Most famously from what became 7-Up. Glauber salt was used as a laxative and detoxifying agent. Vitamin D was once prescribed in extremely high doses for autoimmune conditions. Today, doses are dramatically lowered despite vitamin D's crucial role in immunity, mood, pain, and development. Colloidal silver was widely used topically as an antibacterial agent before antibiotics existed. I'm not making recommendations, only reporting its historical use. Activated charcoal was used for food poisoning, gas, and toxin exposure. Niacin, vitamin B3, was prescribed to improve cholesterol levels, support mental health, extend lifespan, and boost mitochondrial energy production through NAD.So. When we look back, it's clear that natural remedies weren't fringe or alternative. They were mainstream medicine. Since we're on the topic of natural approaches, I've put together a separate video covering some of my personal favorite natural remedies. I highly recommend watching it, and I'll link it right here.